there are a lot of characters in the Animal Crossing universe, lots of characters to love and befriend. But ever since I was a kid, there was always one character that always caught my eye. One character I just knew had a deep backstory, and that character was Sable. Now many of you may know that Sable is the co-owner of the Able Sisters clothing shop. She works with her younger sister Mabel. And to some people, that may be the only thing they know about these sisters. But what if I told you there was a much deeper backstory for these characters? And not only that, but this backstory is one of the darker stories in what many would call one of the most child-friendly games there is. But before we can do that, let me tell you who the Able Sisters are. As of New Leaf, there are 3 Able Sisters working at the Able Sisters clothing shop: Sable, Mabel, and LaBelle. Sable being the oldest, probably around the same age as Tom Nook, LaBelle being younger, and Mabel, who is the youngest. Being the youngest, Mabel is an energetic and talkative person who takes over the spotlight of the Able Sisters store, while her older sister remains in the background. She actively speaks with the player almost always in a pleasant mood, and always appears eager to help. Next is the middle child, LaBelle. In Animal Crossing City Folk, LaBelle seems to act perky and talkative while working at Gracie Grace. You often see her greeting players pleasantly when they first enter the store. This changes in Animal Crossing New Leaf, however, as in that game, LaBelle is straightforward to the player, simply saying thanks if the player leaves without buying anything. She is rather stern about her dream of becoming a fashion designer, and does not allow anything to stand in her way of her dreams, not even her sisters. And of course, Sable. Even though she is the most quiet, she's probably the most loved out of the 3 sisters from the fanbase. Her humble and silent demeanor really stuck out to a lot of players. She was very polite to us, even when telling us players to leave her alone. And being able to befriend her by continuously trying to talk with her made her a very interesting character. Even though she is kind and soft-spoken, Sable is a very focused and determined individual when it comes to her work, refusing to take on any other actions until the task is done. All these reasons are why Sable is so loved, and why so many of us, when playing Animal Crossing, find it almost necessary to befriend her. And if you do befriend her, she becomes more kind and talkative, commenting on the day and her personal life, including her past, which is why we are here. Now you have to go through a good chunk of conversations in the games to learn about the backstory of these characters. What I am about to tell you has been confirmed by players who have experienced the backstory firsthand while playing. So without further explanation, let me tell you the tragic backstory of the Able Sisters. When the Able Sisters were young, everything seemed pretty normal and happy for the sisters. They lived a humble life with their parents. That was until their parents passed away. This left Sable in charge of the family. Mabel was too young to remember what happened. At some point after their parents' passing, Mabel had an argument with Sable and left for a new life in the city as a fashion designer, where she met Gracie, who gave her a new name, LaBelle, to better reflect her life as a designer and to help her feel like she's starting fresh. Not all was sad, however. Sable made a close childhood friend with Tom Nook. Tom and Sable would often hang out with each other, even stargazing with one another and creating their own designs. Even after Tom Nook decides to move to the big city to pursue his dreams, the two exchange letters with one another, and Tom Nook even gifts Sable with a pair of burnt orange scissors for her birthday at one point. At this time, Sable even admits that she was so busy she forgot it was her own birthday. Even with her parents passing and her sister running away to the city, even with all the sadness, Tom Nook remembered her birthday and bought her what she states are the best scissors she's ever had. And this is when Tom Nook was living in the city too, working a job that paid very little. Sable admits those scissors made her so happy she cries when she looks at them. As many of you know, Tom Nook eventually returns back to the town from where he came, but the city had changed him. The time in the city not only changed him, but it appears it took a toll on Tom and Sable's relationship. But every now and then, they talk about each other, showing that there is still some feelings for each other there. But of course, Tom is not the only person close to Sable who comes back into her life. In Animal Crossing City Folk, LaBelle begins to send letters to Mabel in an attempt to try to piece the family back together. This causes Mabel to be quiet and depressed when the player talks to her. This is how we learn of the backstory of the sisters. After this, the player can then travel to the city and ask LaBelle about it, who admits that she has done wrong and wishes to make amends with her sisters. The story in Cityfolk concludes with Mabel wishing that Sable would talk with LaBelle again. In New Leaf, the same story can be uncovered by talking to Sable every day for 10 days. LaBelle now works at the Able sisters running the accessories section of the shop, which suggests that the sisters have made amends and are getting along. However, Label still decides to keep her designer name LaBelle. And that is the tragic story of the Able sisters. The passing of parents and sibling conflict can seem rather bleak to put in a game like Animal Crossing, but this is just a testament to how great these characters are. This is a real story of tragedy, fighting, abandonment, loss, and happiness. The early life of these characters had lots of hardships, but they each learned from these hardships and grew to become who they are. And in New Leaf, the sisters have made amends and are working together to make their shop successful. And it is stories like these that are tucked into these games that make these characters way more than just simple NPCs who sell you things. These characters in this franchise have their own little stories that make them who they are, just like we all have stories that make us who we are. Whether we have a rough upbringing like the Able sisters or we have a good childhood, these characters, we all have a story. And that is a big reason why I make these theory videos, to find these sometimes sad, sometimes scary, and sometimes happy stories that make these characters who they truly are. I know these are just video game characters, but just like characters from plays, movies, and books, you can truthfully learn how to lead your own life based on these characters. Like how to be strong even when everything is crumbling, just like how Sable had to do. Or how to learn to look past your differences and make amends, and even apologize, just like LaBelle had to do. Or to become determined and never be on rock bottom again, like what Tom Nook had to do. That is why I make these videos, to learn these lessons. And that is a big reason why I love Animal Crossing. Thank you all so much for watching.